So look, that's my official function to introduce my colleagues, but I did want to say a few words about how important Chinese media is to Sydney. Firstly, there's about 580,000 people with Chinese ancestry in New South Wales, a massive number and growing. It's up 13% since the last census in 2016. That community is growing at pace and is so responsible for the dynamism of the modern Australian economy, for bringing people to our nation who want to start businesses, to grow families, to join our community, to live the experience of being and living in Australia. We're so grateful for that growing and successful community right here in New South Wales. And certainly when that community starts in Australia, the link with Chinese Australian media is so important for two particular reasons. Firstly, to tell stories from back home, which is so important, putting it in context, understanding what's happening in Cantonese language and the Mandarin language. But secondly, telling the story of Australia from the perspective of that jurisdiction, from that place overseas, which is such an important element of the modern Australian story. We're particularly grateful because the Chinese Australian media stood up and imparted extremely important health information during the COVID emergency to communities that may not speak English as a first language. And in my view, that communication saved lives, whether it was in relation to vaccines, whether it was in relation to restrictions that were in place during that period, whether it was basic health information about where to go and what to do to keep yourself safe. And the clear and direct communication from the Chinese media was so important that, and I don't like to speak in generalities, but the Chinese Australian community were very quick to in effect warn the rest of the community in the early days of the pandemic that this was serious, that it could take many lives, and that we needed to take it seriously. And so I wanted to warmly congratulate you and thank you for that important public service during the COVID emergency. And my colleagues wanted to give you a round of applause for that. There are more than 270,000 Mandarin speakers at home in New South Wales and 150,000 Cantonese speakers. And I want to take this opportunity to say that we encourage that, and Chinese language media do a really important job in ensuring that the next generation of children that have Chinese heritage continue to learn those important languages. That's so important for the Australian economy and community that that continues to go. And I know the government that I'm a part of and that we're all a part of is desperate to ensure that we preserve and continue to grow those languages into the future. That's, I think, one of Australia's great competitive advantages as we move into the next unknowable part of our economic journey and where Australia sits with its growth and opportunities into the future. To have something in the vicinity of, across Australia, over 1 million people that can speak the common tongue of over 1 billion people with access to that market is Australia's great competitive advantage. But that's only going to happen if this generation of Chinese Australians teaches that language to the next generation. And I know that Chinese language media does an amazing job in ensuring that Mandarin and Cantonese is imparted to the next generation, and we thank you for that. I think that's it from me. Warmly welcome you to Parliament House. Thank you so much for interviewing us. There's often very difficult interviews, and oftentimes Keith and Martin and everyone's been really tough with us in the past, but I know that you take your journalism very seriously, and we do too. And we know that whether we necessarily like it or not, we desperately need that direct, clear, and at times tough interviewing from your organisations. It's vital for our democracy, it's really important for the Australian community, and we know that you're doing a vital public service. Thanks so much for being here.